My name is Emily Carter, and today, at 32 years old, I'm the CEO of one of the largest construction firms in the Southeast United States, with a net worth exceeding $5 million. I live in a 4,000 square foot penthouse in downtown Atlanta, drive an imported BMW, and my wardrobe costs more than what many families make in a year. But 14 years ago, I was just an 18-year-old girl being thrown out of her own home by her mother, without any explanation that made sense. That date is burned into my memory like a scar, March 15, 2010. It was a blazing hot Monday in Georgia, one of those suffocating days when the air feels heavy and the humidity sticks to your skin like glue. I had just graduated high school, been accepted to study architecture at Georgia Tech, and I was in that golden phase of life where everything feels possible, before reality has the chance to crush your dreams. Our home was in Buckhead, one of Atlanta's most upscale neighborhoods, where 100-year-old oak trees line streets filled with historic mansions that have housed generations of Southern families. Ours was a 2-story white house with stone accents, built by my grandfather after he immigrated from Italy in the 1950s with dreams of making it big in America. I lived there with my mom, Susan Carter, who was 48 back then. She had always been a mystery to me. Tall, slim, with chestnut hair always pulled into a flawless bun, she worked as an accountant for an international trade company. Her personality was distant, almost cold, a trait I always thought came from the pain of losing my dad when I was just 8 years old. David Carter died in a car accident back in 2000, leaving her a widow and me without the father I barely had time to know. My older brother, Ryan, was 21, finishing his business degree and working part-time at our Uncle Mark's company, our mom's brother. Ryan had always been the golden child, responsible, disciplined, reliable. He had Dad's dark hair, Mom's straight posture, and this calm, confident way of speaking. I, on the other hand, looked more like my mom, tall, slender, with brown hair, but personality-wise, we couldn't have been more different. I was outgoing, curious, a dreamer. I wanted to become an architect, travel the world, and design buildings that would change people's lives. That morning, like any other, I woke up at 7:30, took a long shower while singing along to Beyoncé, and headed downstairs to the smell of fresh coffee and homemade biscuits that always seemed to linger in our kitchen. My mom was sitting at the big oak table in the center of the room, reading the Atlanta Journal-Constitution, her cup of black coffee by her side, wearing that usual focused look I'd known my whole life. "Morning, Mom," I said cheerfully, opening the fridge for some milk and chocolate syrup. It was my last year living at home before college, and I was glowing with the excitement of a future just beginning. 17 years of dreams ready to finally take flight. She looked up from the paper with a strange expression, like she was seeing me for the first time, or maybe memorizing my face. Her brown eyes held something I'd never seen before. A deep sadness mixed with a kind of cold determination. "Emily, we need to talk," she said in a tone that didn't feel like hers. It was formal. Distant. Like she was speaking to a stranger. "Okay, what's up?" I sat down with my mug, expecting some normal talk about college plans, maybe even something about my upcoming graduation party. Susan folded the paper carefully, set it aside, and took a deep breath, like someone bracing themselves to jump into icy water. Her fingers tapped anxiously against the table, a nervous habit of hers, and she avoided looking directly at me. "Emily, you need to move out," she said bluntly. No build-up. No sugarcoating. Like ripping off a Band-Aid. For a second, I didn't process the words. Move out? What? Where? Why? Wait, what? Move out how? It's time for you to live your own life. You're 18. You graduated high school. You got into college. It's time to learn how to be independent. My heart started pounding. Something about the way she said it, her voice, her eyes, told me this wasn't some normal conversation about growing up. This was final. This was brutal. But, Mom, I'm staying here in Atlanta for school. I can commute to Georgia Tech. I don't need to move out to be independent. Yes, you do. You're leaving. Today. Today. That word hit me like a truck. Today? No warning. No time to prepare. No explanation. Today? Mom, are you serious? What are you talking about? Why would you do this? She stood up and started pacing around the kitchen, fiddling with things that didn't need fixing, avoiding my eyes. It was unsettling. My mom was always composed, always in control. This wasn't her. I'm serious, Emily. You have until the end of the day to pack your things. It felt like the floor dropped out from under me. I couldn't breathe. My hands were shaking. My brain kept repeating, this can't be real. This isn't happening. Why, Mom? What did I do? Why are you doing this to me? She finally stopped and looked me dead in the eye for the first time since this nightmare started. And what I saw there scared me more than anything, an icy coldness, like I was a stranger she needed gone. Because it's for the best. For all of us. For the best? Best for who? I'm your daughter. How is throwing me out what's best? No. No, I don't accept this. You can't just kick me out without telling me why. I deserve to know why my own mother doesn't want me anymore. Stop being dramatic, Emily. You're an adult now. You need to learn how to stand on your own. I'm just helping you face the real world. Dramatic? You're kicking me out of the house. Today. With no warning, no explanation, and I'm the dramatic one? That's when Ryan walked into the kitchen, dressed in the navy blue suit Mom had bought him for his first job at Uncle Mark's firm. He took one look at us, at my tear-streaked face, at Mom's cold stare, and knew something serious was going down. What the hell's going on here? He asked, looking back and forth between us. I'm explaining to your sister that it's time for her to leave home and start her independent life, Susan said, like she was talking about the weather. Ryan frowned and looked at me, confused. Leave home? Right now? Why? Because she's an adult now, and she needs to learn how to take care of herself, Mom answered flatly. Mom, that doesn't make any sense. Emily's going to college right here in Atlanta. Why does she have to move out? I felt a wave of relief knowing Ryan thought this was insane too. At least I wasn't losing my mind. At least someone else saw how wrong this was. Ryan, stay out of this. The decision's been made. But Mom, Ryan started. No buts. Emily is moving out today. End of discussion. Her tone was so sharp, so final, that even Ryan stepped back. We both knew that voice from childhood. It meant there was no arguing, no negotiating. It was done. Set in stone. I looked at my brother, desperately searching for some kind of support, hoping he could help me understand what was happening. But his eyes were filled with the same confusion that was drowning me. He didn't get it either. Mom, I tried one more time, my voice cracking, fighting back tears. Please, just explain. If I did something wrong, tell me. I'll fix it. If you're going through something, we can talk about it. But don't do this. Don't kick me out like this. Not without telling me why. She stared at me for a long moment. And for a second, I swear, I thought she was going to break. I thought she was about to tell me what was really going on. But then, her face hardened again. There's nothing to explain, Emily. It's better for everyone if you leave. Period. Something shattered inside me in that moment. It wasn't just my heart, it was the image of my family, my mother, my place in the world. In a matter of minutes, I'd gone from beloved daughter to unwanted stranger. From family, to nothing. I ran upstairs, slammed my bedroom door shut, and broke down in a way I never had before. These weren't normal tears. This was total despair. The kind of grief that feels like it might swallow you whole. I threw myself onto my twin bed, surrounded by stuffed animals from my childhood and architecture books I'd just bought for college, and cried until my body physically couldn't cry anymore. When the tears finally stopped, it was noon. I heard a knock on my door, and Ryan's voice came from the other side. Emily, open up. Let's talk. I opened the door and found my brother standing there, looking as worried and confused as I felt. He came in and sat on the edge of my bed. Emily, I don't get it, he said, running his hands through his hair, his go-to nervous habit. Mom's never said anything about you having to move out. Just yesterday, she was talking about how proud she was that you got into Georgia Tech. Then why is she doing this, Ryan? What did I do? I don't know. I tried talking to her after you went upstairs. She wouldn't say anything, just kept repeating that it's better this way and that her decision is final. And you, do you think it's better if I leave? Ryan locked eyes with me, his face tense with worry. Of course not. You're my sister. This is your home too. None of this makes any sense. Then help me convince her to change her mind. I tried, Emily. You know how she is. When she makes up her mind about something, there's no changing it. And it was true. Our mom was stubborn to the core. But I never imagined that trait could be turned against me like this. Ryan, I have nowhere to go. I don't have a job. I don't have money. How does she expect me to just figure it out? Ryan shifted, clearly uncomfortable. Look. I can give you some money to help you get started. And maybe you could stay with one of your friends until you figure something out. The thought of crashing at a friend's house, having to explain that my own mother threw me out, filled me with a kind of shame I didn't even know was possible. But what choice did I have? That afternoon, I packed my life into a suitcase and 2 plastic bags. It was heartbreaking, watching my entire existence shrink down to something I could carry in my hands. Clothes, books, a few personal things, family photos, all reduced to 3 bags. By 5 p.m., as I zipped up the last suitcase, my mom appeared in the doorway. She glanced at the packed bags, the half-empty room, and then at me. For a brief moment, I thought I saw regret flicker in her eyes. But it was gone in an instant. Are you ready? She asked, using that same cold, formal tone she'd had all day. Mom, please, I begged one last time. Don't do this. Tell me what's going on. If something's wrong, if I did something, we can fix it. Emily, stop. You're just making this harder than it needs to be. Harder for who? You? Imagine how this feels for me. She sighed, and for a split second, it looked like she was about to say something important. Something that could explain everything. But then, she straightened her back, shut it all down, and said, It's better this way, Emily. One day, you'll understand. Those were the last words my mother said to me as I walked out of that house. One day, you'll understand. Like there was some secret reason behind all this pain. Some noble purpose to this cruelty. Ryan helped me carry my bags to the front door. Mom had locked herself in her bedroom and didn't even come out to say goodbye. On the sidewalk, my brother hugged me tight and whispered, Emily. I don't know what this is about, but it's not right. I'm going to try to figure it out. I'll help you however I can. Thank you, Ryan. You're all I have left. He gave me $500 in cash, the only money he had in his wallet, and promised he'd keep trying to talk to Mom. Then I called a cab and headed to my best friend's house, Sophie Bennett, who lived in East Atlanta Village. The entire cab ride, I stared out the window at the streets I'd known my whole life, trying to process how my entire world had been flipped upside down in a single day. That morning, I was Emily Carter, loved daughter, future architect, young woman with a bright future. By nightfall, I was Emily Carter, the girl kicked out of her own home, for no reason, with no answers, and no plan. Sophie and her family welcomed me with open arms and disbelief. When I told them what happened, her mom, Mrs. Bennett, was furious. Wait, your mother threw you out? With no warning? No explanation? That's unthinkable, Emily. There's got to be some kind of misunderstanding. But there wasn't. It was exactly what it looked like. My mom had decided I was no longer part of the family. And there was nothing I could do to change it. That night, lying on the couch in Sophie's living room, staring at a ceiling that wasn't mine, listening to sounds that weren't from my home, smelling scents that didn't belong to my house, I made myself a promise. I would figure out why my mother did this to me. And I would build a life so successful, so extraordinary, that one day, she would regret ever letting me go. I never imagined it would take 14 years to uncover the truth, and that when I finally did, it would be far more painful and complicated than I ever could have prepared for. Those first few months after leaving home were the hardest of my life. Sophie's family was incredibly kind, but I knew I couldn't stay there forever. I needed a job, a place to live, and some way to pay for the college I'd always dreamed of. In April 2010, a month after being kicked out, I landed my first job, as a sales clerk at a hardware store in East Point. They paid $600 a month, plus bus fare and a small meal allowance. It wasn't much. But it was a start. The owner, Mr. Armando, was a short, heavy-set man in his 50s, with a graying mustache and the rough hands of someone who'd built his business from scratch over the past 20 years. He took pity on me when I explained that I needed the job to survive and pay for school. "Kid," he told me the day he hired me, "you don't look like someone who's gonna stick around here too long. But while you're here, you'll work hard, and you'll learn something that just might help you later in life." He was right. Working at that hardware store was never part of my plan, but it turned out to be one of the most valuable experiences I could have asked for. I learned about concrete, bricks, roofing, plumbing, wiring. I met contractors, electricians, plumbers, foremen. For a future architect, it was like getting a hands-on crash course in construction. With my first paycheck, I was able to rent a tiny room in a boarding house in Decatur. 12 square feet. Just a single bed, a worn-out wooden desk, a two-door wardrobe, and a shared bathroom with 5 other tenants. Rent was $250 a month, utilities included. It wasn't much. But it was mine. For the first time in my life, I had a space that was truly mine. A space where no one could kick me out. The landlady, Mrs. Irene, was a 70-year-old widow who'd turned her home into a boarding house to make ends meet. She was a petite woman with white hair always tied in a bun, thick glasses, and a habit of baking fresh bread every Sunday morning. She was strict about the house rules: no noise after 10 p.m., no guests in the rooms, mandatory cleaning on Saturdays, but she had a kind heart. Over time, she became something like a mother figure to me. "Sweetheart," she told me the day I moved in, "I don't know what happened with your family, but here, you'll be treated with respect. And I expect you to show the same respect to everyone else in this house." During the day, I worked at the hardware store from 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. At night, I studied for the college entrance exams again. I'd decided to reapply to Georgia Tech the following year. I couldn't afford prep courses, so I studied with books borrowed from the public library and free resources at the internet cafe down the street. On weekends, I took whatever odd jobs I could find to make extra money: cleaning houses, mowing lawns, helping organize storage units. Every extra dollar mattered. Besides basic living expenses, I was saving for the exam fees and, hopefully, the first semester of college. The hardest part wasn't the money, though. It was the crushing loneliness. The constant ache of abandonment. The gnawing question that haunted me every single night as I lay in that tiny bed staring at the cracked ceiling: why? Why did my own mother throw me away? Ryan called me every Thursday night. Without fail. During those calls, he'd fill me in on what was happening at home and send me what money he could: $50, sometimes $100, whatever he could spare. "She just keeps saying it was for the best and that you're fine," he'd tell me. When I ask if she misses you, she just changes the subject. "And you? How do you feel about all this?" "I feel awful, Emily. The house feels empty without you. Mom's more closed off than ever. Sometimes I think she regrets it. But she's way too stubborn to admit it." In December 2010, 9 months after being kicked out, I took the entrance exams for Georgia Tech again. I'd studied alone all year, working by day, studying by night, completely determined not to let my family situation destroy my dreams. The day the results came out, I went to the university with my heart pounding out of my chest. And there, on the list, was my name. I cried right there, in front of dozens of other students. It wasn't just happiness, it was proof. Proof that I could win. Proof that I didn't need anyone's help to make it. I called Ryan immediately. Emily. That's amazing. Congratulations. You deserve this so much. Thanks, Ryan. But now comes the hard part, figuring out how to actually pay for it. Listen. I talked to Uncle Mark about your situation. He said if you want, you can work at his accounting firm during the day and take classes at night. The pay's better. You'll be able to support yourself. Uncle Mark, Mom's older brother, owned a mid-sized accounting firm in downtown Atlanta with about 30 employees. He was a tall man in his early 50s, bald, always sharply dressed. He'd built a successful career providing accounting services to small businesses around the city. When I went to his office to discuss the job, he greeted me warmly, but there was a clear shadow of concern in his eyes. Emily, I don't know what happened between you and your mom, he said, seated behind a huge mahogany desk that took up most of his office. Susan's always been complicated. But throwing her own daughter out? That doesn't sound like her. Uncle Mark, has she ever told you why she did it? No, sweetheart. Every time I try to bring it up, she just says it was the right decision. That's it. But I can tell she's not okay. She's lost weight. She's withdrawn. She's working even more than before. Do you think she regrets it? Uncle Mark fell silent for a moment. He tapped his fingers on the desk, staring out the window that overlooked Peachtree Street. Honestly, Emily, I think she's suffering as much as you are. But your mom's, she's proud. She's stubborn. If she made a mistake, admitting it, that's gonna be near impossible for her. I started working at Uncle Mark's firm in February 2011 as an administrative assistant. The job paid $900 a month, a huge improvement from the hardware store. I answered phones, organized paperwork, managed spreadsheets, and helped the senior accountants with basic tasks. At night, I attended architecture classes at Georgia Tech. It was supposed to be a full-time program, but I managed to get special permission to take evening classes, making up for the daytime ones during weekends and school breaks. Balancing work and college was brutal, but I was determined. Nothing was going to stop me from getting that degree. Most of my classmates at Georgia Tech came from middle or upper-class families whose parents paid for everything, their tuition, their apartments, their cars. When they talked about family vacations, generous allowances, or gifts from their parents, I felt this sharp mix of sadness and envy. But at the same time, I felt proud. Proud to be there on my own merit. Proud to be paying for my education with my own work. During my second year of college, in 2012, I got a promotion at Uncle Mark's firm. I was moved up to junior accountant, earning $1,200 a month. It was enough to breathe easier. I rented a small one-bedroom apartment in East Atlanta, bought some second-hand furniture that was still in good shape, and even managed to save a little each month. That same year, I also started an unpaid internship at an architecture firm on Saturdays, just to get hands-on experience in the field I loved. The firm was located in a commercial building downtown and specialized in high-end residential projects. The lead architect, Robert Silverman, was 45, demanding but fair, with a sharp eye for talent. Emily, you've got an architect's eye, he told me after just a few weeks. Your ideas are creative but grounded in reality. Keep going like this, and you're going to go far. It was the first time in years that someone recognized my professional potential. Those words lit a fire in me that carried me through for weeks. In 2013, my third year, something happened that completely shifted my career path. During an urban design course, I presented an innovative proposal to revitalize a neglected area of downtown Atlanta. It focused on transforming it into a space that combined public green areas with local businesses and affordable housing, using sustainable materials and socially inclusive design. My professor, architect Patricia Lawson, was blown away. "Emily, this project has real potential. Would you be interested in presenting it at an upcoming conference on urban revitalization next month?" The conference was a success. My presentation caught the attention of several industry professionals, including someone from the city planning department who expressed interest in pursuing similar projects. For the first time, I felt like I was doing something that mattered. Something that could genuinely impact people's lives. That night, walking home through downtown Atlanta, looking at the buildings, the parks, the people, I felt something burning inside me. A purpose. A calling. I knew this was exactly what I was meant to do. When I got home, I called Ryan to tell him about the conference. During our conversation, he said something that caught me off guard. "Emily, Mom's been acting really strange lately. More closed off. Sadder. Sometimes I catch her looking at old pictures of us when we were kids. Does she ever ask about me?" "Not directly. But when Uncle Mark mentions you, she listens. Even if she pretends not to care." "Ryan, do you think if I tried talking to her?" "I don't know, Emily. Honestly. I don't know. She's too proud. I don't think she'd admit anything, even if she wanted to." In 2014, my senior year, I started working on my final thesis project. I chose to design a sustainable social housing project, deeply inspired by my own experience of having to survive alone. I wanted to create spaces that offered dignity and opportunity for people living in vulnerable conditions. That project consumed months of research, planning, and development. I interviewed social workers, low-income families, sustainability experts. I visited underserved communities, studied successful case studies in other countries, and analyzed affordable, eco-friendly building technologies. Robert Silverman, my internship mentor, followed my progress closely, and as the months went by, he grew more and more impressed. "Emily, this isn't student work. This is professional grade. Honestly, this could be built tomorrow." In December 2014, I presented my final project to a panel of professors. The presentation lasted an hour and a half. I covered every detail: location, sustainability, budget feasibility, social impact. At the end, not only did the panel approve it, they recommended it for publication in the university's academic journal. When I received my diploma in March 2015, I sat alone at the graduation ceremony. There was no family to clap for me. No one to take pictures. No one to celebrate. But what I did have was a kind of pride very few people ever get to feel, the absolute certainty that I had made it on my own. That I'd turned abandonment into independence. Pain into determination. Robert offered me a full-time job at his firm as a junior architect the moment I graduated. The starting salary was $2,500 a month plus bonuses from projects. It was the professional recognition I'd been working toward for years. "Emily," he said on my first day as a licensed architect, "you've got something rare. Your ability to combine technical skill with real empathy, that's powerful. You've got a bright future." Through 2015 and 2016, I worked on several residential and commercial projects at Robert's firm. I built experience, earned respect, and started dreaming about opening my own firm one day. Financially, I was stable. I could pay all my bills, save a little, and even take a few short trips. But emotionally, there was still a massive emptiness. The absence of my family. The unanswered questions about why I'd been cast out. The constant ache of having no one to share my wins with. Every night before falling asleep, I still asked myself, why did she do this to me? In 2017, 7 years after being kicked out, I made a decision that would change my life forever. I opened my own architecture firm, specializing in social and sustainable projects. I'd saved enough to rent a small office, buy the basic equipment, and survive the first few months without clients. My first independent project was a low-income housing development for families in a suburb outside Atlanta. It was a tough project, requiring creative solutions to balance tight budgets with livability and dignity. I spent months designing innovative ways to incorporate rainwater collection, solar energy, low-cost yet durable materials, and shared community spaces that fostered connection. The project was an absolute success. It won the Georgia Association of Architects Social Innovation Award, was featured in several industry magazines, and brought in a flood of new clients. Overnight, I became known as the social architect, an expert in balancing social responsibility with technical excellence. By 2018, 8 years after being disowned, my firm had grown to 5 employees and a solid list of clients, including city governments, NGOs, and businesses committed to sustainability. My monthly revenue had reached $15,000, and I had become a recognized leader in the field of social architecture in Georgia. That's when Ryan called me with news that shook me to my core. "Emily. Mom's sick." My heart stopped. "Sick? What do you mean, sick?" "Breast cancer. They found it last week. She's going to need chemo." I sat in silence for several seconds, trying to process the information. My mother, the woman who had thrown me out of her house without a shred of explanation, was sick. And despite all the pain she had caused me, I felt a wave of genuine concern. How is she handling it?" I finally asked. "Not well, Emily. She's scared. More withdrawn than ever. Anne. I think she's been thinking about you." "Why? Did she say something?" "Not directly. But, yesterday, she asked if I knew how you were. If you were happy, if you were married." It was the first time in 8 years that my mother had shown any real interest in my life. A confusing mix of anger, sadness, and, maybe even hope washed over me. "Ryan, do you think she wants to see me?" "I don't know, Emily. She's too proud to say it out loud. But, yeah. I think she does. Deep down." That night, I stayed awake for hours, torn. Part of me wanted to rush to the hospital, hold her, forget everything that had happened. Another part was furious that it took her getting sick and vulnerable to finally care. And a third part, still desperately wanted answers. By morning, I'd made a decision. I would visit her. But not for a teary reunion or emotional closure. I would go as the woman I had become, successful, independent, self-made. I needed her to see that I had survived, no, thrived, despite what she did. And maybe, just maybe, I would finally get the answers I'd been searching for all these years. The hospital, Piedmont, Atlanta, was, ironically, only a few blocks from the house where I'd grown up. As I walked into the lobby, with its sterile smell and 2 clean white walls, a wave of nerves hit me. Nerves I hadn't felt in years. It was March 2018. Exactly 8 years since she'd kicked me out. I was 26 now, a respected architect, owner of my own thriving firm, financially secure. But as I walked those hospital halls toward her room, I felt like that 18-year-old girl again. Scared. Hurt. Abandoned. Ryan had given me the room number, 314, 3rd floor, West Wing. In the elevator, I rehearsed what I'd say. How I'd carry myself. I didn't want to sound bitter. But I wasn't about to pretend the past didn't happen either. I needed her to see who I had become, and I needed the truth. Standing outside room 314, I paused. Took a deep breath. On the other side of that door was the woman who had given me life, and then, when I was barely an adult, decided I no longer deserved to be part of hers. I knocked softly. "Come in," came her familiar voice. There she was. Lying in a hospital bed, hooked up to IVs, looking smaller, frilier, than I'd ever seen her. Her once chestnut hair was now streaked with gray, her face lined with wrinkles that hadn't been there 8 years ago. When her eyes met mine, a storm of emotions crossed her face in seconds: shock, joy, sadness, shame. Emily, she whispered, like she was seeing a ghost. Hi, Mom, I said, keeping my voice steady. Ryan told me about your diagnosis. I came to see you. She struggled to sit up straighter, instinctively smoothing her hair the way she always did when she was nervous. Her eyes filled with tears she tried desperately to hold back. You look so different. So, grown. Of course I did. 8 years had passed. But I understood that what she really meant was, I don't recognize the woman you've become. A lot's changed in 8 years, I said, pulling a chair up beside her bed. Ryan, he's told me a few things about you, she said, avoiding my gaze. Said you graduated. Said you started your own firm. It's true. I specialize in social architecture. I design affordable housing, community centers, clinics. For a brief moment, I saw something flicker in her eyes, pride. Genuine pride. But it was quickly drowned by sadness. I always knew, you'd do something important, she whispered. Her words hit me like a punch to the chest. If she knew I'd do something important, why? Why had she cast me out at the very moment I was beginning to build that life? Mom, I said, cutting straight to it, we need to talk about what happened. About what you did, 8 years ago. She shut her eyes, exhaling slowly. Emily, not now. Not now? When, Mom? Are we just going to pretend you didn't throw me out of the house? Pretend you didn't abandon me when I needed you the most? Please, not while I'm like this. I'm sick, I'm weak. You've had 8 years to explain. 8 years where I asked myself every single day, what did I do to deserve being disowned by my own mother? She opened her eyes, and the look of pain in them was deeper than anything I'd ever seen. You didn't do anything wrong, Emily. You never did. Then why? Why did you do it? She went silent. Staring at her hands. Wrestling with something deep, something heavy. After what felt like forever, she finally spoke. Because I thought it was what was best for you. Throwing me out at 18? How was that best for me, Mom? You wouldn't understand. Try me. I'm 26 now. Not a child. Try me. She took a deep, shaky breath. And for the first time in 8 years, it looked like she was ready to tell me something real. Emily, your childhood, your teenage years, they were too easy. Too safe. You never had to fight for anything. I thought you needed to learn how to survive. To be strong. I stared at her, stunned. You kicked me out, to teach me to be strong? I believed that if you had to fend for yourself, you'd unlock the strength I knew you had, but had never been forced to find. Mom, that's insane. There are a million ways to teach someone independence without abandoning them. I know it sounds cruel, but it sounds cruel because it is cruel. You abandoned me when I needed you most. You made me feel disposable. Unwanted. Tears finally spilled down her cheeks. I never wanted you to feel unwanted. I love you, Emily. I've always loved you. What a strange way to show love, Mom. For a while, neither of us spoke. She cried quietly. I sat there, trying to process an explanation that felt hollow. A lesson in independence? No, there was something deeper. I could feel it in my bones. Mom, there's more. I can tell. This lesson story doesn't explain it. Not really. What aren't you telling me? She looked at me, and for the first time, I saw it. Fear. Real, deep, paralyzing fear. Emily, please, not now. When, Mom? When you're gone? Am I supposed to spend the rest of my life not knowing why my own mother turned her back on me? The word gone made her flinch visibly. Death was no longer abstract, it was breathing down her neck. She knew This might be our last chance to face it. All right, she finally whispered, her voice trembling. But, you have to promise me something. What? Promise me, you'll try to understand. That you won't hate me even more after I tell you. I don't hate you, Mom. I'm hurt. I'm confused. But I don't hate you. She nodded slowly. Took another deep breath. And then, in a voice barely above a whisper, she said the words that made my entire world spin. Emily, your father. David, he didn't die in a car accident. My entire body went cold. What? What do you mean, he didn't die in a car accident? Breast cancer. They found it last week. She's going to need chemotherapy. I sat there, stunned, trying to process it. My mother, the woman who had kicked me out of her life without a single explanation, was sick. And despite all the pain, despite the years of silence, I felt a real, undeniable wave of worry. How's she handling it? I asked, my voice quieter than I expected. Not well, Ryan sighed. She's scared. More shut off than ever. But I think she's thinking about you. Why? Did she say something? Not exactly. But yesterday, she asked if I knew how you were. If you were happy. If you'd gotten married. It was the first time in 8 years that she'd shown any curiosity about my life. A strange cocktail of anger, sadness, and, God help me, hope surged inside me. Ryan, do you think she wants to see me? I honestly don't know. She's too proud to say it. But, yeah. Deep down. I think she does. That night, I lay awake, staring at the ceiling. A part of me wanted to run to the hospital, hug her, pretend none of it ever happened. Another part was furious that it took her getting sick to finally care. And another part needed answers. I made my decision. I was going. Not for forgiveness. Not for some emotional reunion. I was going as the woman I'd become, a successful architect, an independent adult. I wanted her to see that. And maybe I'd finally get the truth. Piedmont Atlanta Hospital was, ironically, only a few blocks from the house I grew up in. Walking into the bright, sterile lobby, that familiar hospital smell hit me, along with a rush of nerves I hadn't felt in years. It was March 2018. 8 years since she'd kicked me out. I was 26 now. Owner of my own architecture firm. Financially independent. Respected. But walking down those hospital halls toward her room, I felt like that terrified 18-year-old all over again. Room 314. 3rd floor. West wing. I paused outside the door, took a deep breath, and knocked. Come in, her voice called out. There she was. Lying in a hospital bed. Smaller. Frilier. Her hair streaked with gray, her skin paler than I'd ever seen. The moment her eyes landed on me, a storm of emotions crossed her face, shock, relief, sadness, shame. Emily, she whispered. Like she was seeing a ghost. Hi, Mom, I said, keeping my voice steady. Ryan told me. I came to see you. She tried to sit up straighter, smoothing her hair the way she always did when nervous. Her eyes welled up. You look so grown. A lot's changed in 8 years, I said, pulling a chair beside her bed. Ryan, he told me some things. Said you graduated. Started your own firm. Yeah. I did. I specialize in social architecture. Affordable housing. Community projects. I saw it then, pride. Real, genuine pride flickered in her eyes. But it was drowned by guilt. I always knew, you'd do something important, she whispered. The words hit like a punch to the chest. If you knew that, why did you throw me away? Mom, I said, my voice firm, we need to talk. About what happened. About what you did. She closed her eyes. Emily, not now. Yes. Now. You can't hide behind being sick to dodge this. You kicked me out. You abandoned me. And I've spent 8 years trying to understand why. Please, not while I'm like this. You've had 8 years. 8 years where I asked myself every day what I did wrong. Tears filled her eyes. You didn't do anything wrong. You never did. Then why? She stared at her hands for a long time. Silent. Battling something inside her. Finally, she whispered. Because. I thought it was what was best for you. I blinked. Best for me? Throwing me out at 18? You wouldn't understand. Try me. I'm 26 now. Not a kid anymore. Try me. She exhaled deeply. Her hands trembled. Emily, your father. David, he didn't die in a car accident. The room spun. What do you mean, he didn't? He left us. When you were 8, he just walked away. Said he didn't want to be married anymore. Didn't want the responsibility of a family. My heart pounded in my ears. He left us? He's alive? Why did you lie? Why tell us he died in a car crash? Because. I thought it would hurt less. I thought it was better for you and Ryan to believe he was gone, than to know he chose to leave. I sat there, stunned. And what does that have to do with you kicking me out? She hesitated, fighting back more tears. Because, you're just like him. Not just physically. But, your spirit. Your independence. The way you chase your dreams, without worrying what anyone thinks. And that's a bad thing? No. But, it terrified me. I was scared, that one day, you'd leave. Just like he did. I finally started seeing the twisted logic behind it all. So, you left me, before I could leave you? I thought. If you learned to survive on your own, if you came back, it would be because you wanted to. Not because you needed me. And then. I'd know you wouldn't abandon me like he did. It was a cruel, backwards logic, but it finally started to make a kind of tragic sense. My mother had been broken by abandonment. And in her fear, she tried to control the one thing she thought she could, whether I stayed. Mom, do you realize, you created the exact outcome you were afraid of? You made me leave. But you came back, she whispered, tears falling. You're here now. I'm here because you're sick. Not because I chose to come back to this family. That hit her like a slap. Her head dropped. Her body trembled. I know, Emily. I know I made a terrible mistake. I know I hurt you in ways I can never undo. So, what do you want from me now? I want you to know that I love you. I've always loved you. And that. I am so incredibly proud of the woman you've become. If I could go back, I'd do everything differently. I looked at her, thin, frail, terrified of dying, and I felt everything. Anger. Sadness. Pity. Compassion. This woman had destroyed me, but she had also destroyed herself in the process. Mom. I need time. Time to process all this. Finding out my father is alive, that you lied, that you kicked me out because of your fear, it's a lot. I understand. I do. I just want you to know, no matter what happens, I'm going to die knowing you are the most extraordinary person I've ever known. I stood, leaned down, kissed her forehead, and said quietly, I'll come back tomorrow. We have more to talk about. Walking out of that hospital, my head was spinning. For 8 years, I'd carried the weight of abandonment with no answers. Now. I had some. But with those answers came new, deeper questions. My father was alive. He had abandoned us. My mother had lied for 18 years. And in her terror that I might follow in his footsteps, she had pushed me away herself. It was a truth more painful and complex than anything I'd imagined. In the weeks that followed, I visited her daily. Each visit uncovered more pieces of our shattered family story. Slowly, I started to understand the depth of the trauma my father's abandonment had caused her. Emily, she told me one April afternoon, as chemo dripped into her fore, I want to tell you about the day your father left. It was a story she had never told anyone. Not even Ryan. One morning in September 2000. David packed a bag, left a letter on the kitchen table, and disappeared. The letter said only that he couldn't live this life anymore. That the role of father, of husband, suffocated him. And that it was better for everyone if he was just gone. He didn't even say goodbye to you, she whispered, her eyes filling. He left while you two were at school. How did you explain that to us? I made up the car accident, that very day. I told you he died on his way to work. I thought it would be easier. You really believe that? At the time, yes. Now, I know it was another terrible mistake. As she slowly healed from chemo, so did we. It wasn't easy. You don't just forgive 8 years of unnecessary pain overnight. But I started to see, she was a victim of her own pain, her own fear. In June 2018, when she was finally discharged, I made a decision that shocked even me. Emily, are you sure? Ryan asked when I told him. I'm sure. She's sick. She's alone. And we've already lost too much time. My mother was stunned when I asked her to move in with me. Emily, you don't have to do this, she said softly. I know. I want to. If we're going to rebuild, then let's do it right. She moved into the guest room in my apartment. It wasn't easy for either of us. But slowly, walls came down. Emily, she told me one night over dinner, I watch you every day. And I'm in awe of the woman you've become. You are strong. Independent. Successful. But you are also kind. And compassionate. You built this life, all by yourself. Yeah, I nodded, looking her in the eye. Because I didn't have a choice, Mom. Maybe that's exactly why you succeeded, my mom said quietly. Maybe my terrible decision had an unexpected, positive outcome I never imagined. It was a disturbing thought. Was it possible that the abandonment, as painful as it had been, really had made me stronger? Would I have achieved the same level of success if I'd stayed in the comfort of my parents' home? Mom, even if that's true, it doesn't justify how you did it. There are ways to teach independence without causing that much pain. I know, sweetheart. And if I could go back, I'd do everything differently. In September 2018, exactly 6 months after our reconciliation, something happened that would shake our lives again. Ryan called me on a Saturday morning with news I never expected. Emily, you won't believe this. I found Dad. My heart nearly stopped. After 18 years, our father had been found? What do you mean you found him? I hired a private investigator a few months ago. Didn't tell anyone. This morning, he called. He found David Carter. He's living in Charleston. He's alive. Alive. Married again. Has 2 young kids. Works as an engineer at a construction company. The news left me frozen. My father wasn't just alive, he'd built an entirely new life. A new family. As if we never existed. What are you going to do with this? I asked Ryan. I don't know. Part of me wants to confront him, ask him why. The other part thinks, maybe it's better to leave the past where it is. I told my mom that afternoon. Her reaction surprised me, no anger, no bitterness. Just a deep, quiet sadness, mixed with relief. At least now, We know he's alive, she said softly. All these years, part of me always wondered. Do you want to see him? No, Emily. I don't need to reopen that chapter. He made his choice 18 years ago. And now, I've made mine. I choose to live in the present, with the people who actually matter. It was a hard-earned wisdom, but it showed just how much she had grown emotionally. As for me, it took weeks to decide. Part of me wanted to confront him, to ask why. To demand answers. Another part thought maybe he didn't deserve even that. In October 2018, I made my decision. I wrote him a letter. In it, I told him about my life. About what I had achieved. About how I had grown up without him. I didn't write with anger. I didn't ask for anything. I simply told him that he had missed the chance to know the extraordinary woman I had become, and that, in the end, that was a bigger loss for him than for me. I sent it to the address the investigator had provided. I never got a reply. And I didn't expect one. The letter wasn't about forgiveness. It wasn't about closure from him. It was about me closing the chapter, on my terms. In December 2018, Mom finished chemotherapy, with excellent results. The doctors declared her cancer in full remission. To celebrate, I hosted a small party at my home, for our rebuilt family, me, Ryan, and her. Emily, Mom said during the party, raising her glass, I want to take this moment to say something I should have said a long time ago. I am deeply sorry. For everything. For the pain I caused you. For the years I wasted. There's not a day I don't regret what I did. But I was too proud, too scared, to admit it. Mom. I forgive you. Not because what you did was right. But because I understand now, you acted out of fear. And because life's too short to hold on to anger forever. Thank you, Emily. You are so much wiser than I ever was. I had to be strong because I had no choice. I had to learn to forgive, because I chose to. In January 2019, Mom moved back to her own home. But our relationship had completely transformed. We talked every day. We had Sunday brunch together. And she became one of my biggest supporters, both personally and professionally. Emily, she said one day over coffee, I've been thinking, what if I invested in your firm? I've got some savings. I believe in your work. And I want to be part of your success. It was surreal. The same woman who had once kicked me out, now wanted to help me build my future. Mom, you don't have to do this to make up for the past. I know. This isn't about redemption. It's because I believe in you. I accepted. And in March 2019, we expanded. We moved into a space 3 times larger. Hired more staff. Took on bigger projects. Mom became a minority partner in the firm, and to our surprise, discovered she had a real talent for operations and finance. Today, in 2024, our firm is one of the most respected in the southeastern United States for social architecture. We have 25 employees, projects in 3 states, and an annual revenue exceeding $2 million. We've designed and built more than 500 affordable homes, 15 daycare centers, 8 health clinics, and 3 schools. My mom, now 62 and completely cancer-free, works beside me every day. Our relationship is stronger than it ever was, even stronger than before everything fell apart. Maybe because we both had to grow. Maybe because we both finally understood that time is far too precious to waste on pride and resentment. Emily, she said last month as we reviewed a new project proposal, I know our story had so much pain, but looking back, I believe everything happened the way it was supposed to. You became the extraordinary woman you are because of it. Do you really believe that? I do. Not because what I did was right, I'll never fully forgive myself for it. But because you turned something terrible into something powerful. It's a perspective that still stirs complicated feelings inside me. On one hand, it's true. The hardships shaped me. Made me stronger. Fiercely independent. determined. On the other hand, the emotional cost was enormous. And many of those lessons could have been learned in ways far less cruel. But today, I choose to focus on the present and the future. Not the past. I choose to cherish the relationship I have with my mother now, not mourn the relationship we lost for 8 years. I choose to use my story to help others. Last year, I published a book, Building Forgiveness, a story of abandonment and reconciliation. It tells our story and offers reflections on how to heal from family trauma. The response has been overwhelming. Readers have written to tell me how it helped them start conversations they never thought they'd have. At a speaking event, a woman stood up and said, "Emily, your story gave me hope that maybe I can reconnect with my daughter. We haven't spoken in 5 years. Over something I did, something I regret every day. The first step," I told her, "is to own the mistake, fully. The second, is to accept that forgiveness might not come right away. The third, is to show, through actions, not words, that you've changed." That has become my mission. To help families heal. To show that even the deepest wounds can be mended. My mom always joins me at these speaking events. She shares her side of the story, openly, honestly, taking full responsibility for the mistakes she made. And she encourages other parents not to repeat those same mistakes. The fear of losing a child, she often says to the audience, can drive you to make decisions that guarantee the very outcome you're trying so hard to avoid. Please, learn from my mistake. Real love is about support and acceptance, not control. Not tests. Just unconditional love. As for my father, we never heard from him again after I sent that letter. A few years ago, we found out through social media that he had divorced again and was now living in Sao Paulo. Ryan considered reaching out, but ultimately decided it wasn't worth reopening old wounds. Some people come into your life to stay, Ryan told me recently. Others show up to teach you something, and then they leave. Our father was the latter. And the lesson he taught us is simple: family isn't about blood. It's about choice. About commitment. About unconditional love. It's a truth we've carried into the families we're building now. Ryan got married last year, and he's about to become a father for the first time. Our mom is absolutely glowing at the thought of becoming a grandmother. This time, she told me over coffee last week, "I'm going to be the kind of grandma I always should have been as a mom. Present. Supportive. Loving. No judgment. No conditions." As for me, I've been in a relationship for 2 years now with Fernando, a landscape architect I met during an urban renewal project. He knows my whole story, and he deeply respects the way I turned pain into purpose, abandonment into independence, and trauma into wisdom. "Emily," he told me on our first anniversary, "you are the strongest person I know. Not because you never suffered, but because you turned your suffering into something beautiful. We're talking about getting married next year. And when we have children, they will grow up in a family where the mistakes of the past have become lessons for the future. Where love is shown through support, not control. Where independence is encouraged, not punished." Yesterday, 14 years after that March morning when my mother kicked me out, she called me, just to say she loved me. "Emily," she said, "I know I say this every day now, but I need to say it again. I love you. I'm proud of you. And I'm grateful every single day that you gave me a second chance. I love you too, Mom. And I'm grateful that we found our way back to each other." As I hung up the phone, I reflected on everything that had brought us to this moment. It's been a long road. A painful one. Full of hurt, misunderstandings, and tears. But it's also been a road filled with resilience. With forgiveness. And with the transformative power of real, unconditional love. Today, I understand, there is no such thing as a perfect family. There are only families who choose to grow together. Families who choose to learn from their mistakes. Who choose love over pride. Ours chose the hard road. But we came out the other side stronger. wiser, closer than we've ever been. The 18-year-old girl who was kicked out without explanation became a 32-year-old woman who knows that sometimes, the people we love the most are also the ones who hurt us the most. Not out of malice, but out of fear, pain, or emotional immaturity. And that forgiveness isn't about forgetting. It's about choosing not to let the past define your future. My story ends where it began, with family. Not the perfect family from some fairy tale, but a real family. Messy. Flawed. But one that chose love over pain. Forgiveness over resentment. The future over the past. And sometimes, discovering the real reason behind your greatest pain is just the first step toward an even greater healing.